Hi, everyone. Welcome back. It's great to have you here. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the podcast, where each session we do our very, very best to figure out how to get healthy, how to improve our well being, and how to perform at world class. We do our best to ground everything in the science of human physiology, how the body and brain work, and to bring you experts on how to do that. And every once in a while, not just experts, but I will actually say something to you. And so, what I wanted to share with you today was a 2-hour masterclass that I did recently. And this covers off what I wrote about in the Ripple Effect book, which is sleeping soundly, eating smarter, moving more, and thinking clearly. This is 2 hours, so you may want to listen to this over a bunch of different sessions, a few different commutes, or if you happen to have time, I'm posting this during the summer. If you have time to kick back, throw on the headphones, and give this one a listen, that would be absolutely fantastic. The master classes that I've posted previously have done extraordinarily well. People seem to enjoy them. So this is a deep dive. This has Q&A embedded because I did this live. So I was answering questions from the audience. There are questions at the end of each of the 4 sections. So if you wanted to dig into those as well, and maybe some of those people ask the questions that you would have otherwise asked. If you do have questions, ping me on social, DM me at Dr. Greg Wells on the various different platforms, and I'll do my very best to get back to you. There is a workbook that accompanies this session. I will link to it in the show notes. You can download it. It's a PDF, and that has a whole bunch of exercises that will help you action some of the information that is in this podcast. So let's dig into it. This is 2 hours, all about the ripple effect, the foundations of health and well-being, sleep, nutrition, exercise, and mindset. I really hope that this helps you. It certainly has helped a lot of other people in the format of the book. Now we're pushing it out as the podcast. And if you have any questions, please let me know. All right, without any further delays, let's dig into it. Please enjoy my presentation all about the ripple effect: sleep, eat, move, and think better. Good morning, everyone. It's so wonderful to see you. And I'm absolutely grateful that you're all hanging out with me today and that we get to talk for the next little while about health, well-being, and high performance. So we have a lot of information for you today. What I'm going to do is begin with a little bit of background just about why this topic of health and wellness is so important for all of us. I will give you a little bit of transparency around that. Then we'll get into the 4 main areas that we'll be focusing on today: sleep, nutrition, exercise, and mindset. I will pause for questions after each one. So about every 20 minutes or so, there will be a little bit of a Q&A break, and then we'll dive into the next session. If something comes up that's top of mind, don't be afraid to interrupt me. I'd far rather this be a little bit more of an interactive, ongoing discussion, but we do have a lot of really cool information for you today. By way of background, I'm a physiologist. I study human performance and health and well-being. I tend to do that in either medical environments or elite performance environments. I am a scientist at the hospital for sick children. I do a lot of MRI research, so I will show you some MRIs of the inside of the human body today. My research there is based around exercise as medicine, and I primarily work in leukemia and cystic fibrosis. The other half of my work is with elite sport, having spent decades with the Canadian Olympic team to help them perform to their best. So I'm basically either working in a medical environment trying to help people overcome chronic disease, or in a high performance environment helping people win medals at the Olympics. What I love to do is gather the information from the extremes, from the health perspective, but also from the performance perspective, to show all of us mere mortals how we can achieve healthy, sustainable high performance in an environment that's changing, an environment that's very, very stressful, and ultimately be able to reach our potential as human beings. So I'm honored to be with you on this journey and to spend a little bit of time with you this morning. To get us started, I will begin with a little bit of transparency, because this is not an easy path. Sometimes it works, sometimes it does not. The whole idea behind the sleep, think, eat, move framework that we're going to be talking about today actually came up about from 2012, so maybe 15 years ago, when I was beginning my career at the University of Toronto. I was also commentating the Summer Olympics. I was also moving houses. My wife was finishing grad school. My daughter was 2, so I hadn't slept in 2 years. It was an incredibly stressful time. And my daughter went to daycare one day. She picked up a cold. I got the cold. And instead of just getting better like Ingrid did, I ended up with viral myocarditis. So, this group would be familiar with that, but swollen, infected heart, and ultimately hospitalized. I was also a researcher at Toronto General at the time in anesthesia, and so I checked myself into my own hospital. Not necessarily the best career move in the world, but they took very good care of me. That's me in the cardiac ward at that particular time. And when I was lying in the cardiac ward with a swollen, painful heart, and the gentleman next to me was not doing well, which put everything into context for me around the importance of coming to some realizations, I looked around and nobody was sleeping. Not the patients, not the staff, not the families. Everyone was exhausted. And then they brought us breakfast. And I don't know if you've had breakfast in a hospital recently, but it's the same foods that cause cardiac disease. Literally eating the stuff that causes the problems that I'm in the ward to cure at breakfast. And then I looked around and nobody was moving. The patients were lying around, the staff was sitting at the nursing station, there was zero physical activity. And of course, you're in the cardiac ward, high pressure environment, stress is through the roof and you can just detect that and feel that. So I was lying there trying to figure out how to get out of the hospital and never, ever, ever come back. And I thought about, okay, so we have sleep, we have nutrition, we have exercise, we have stress. I looked up the data because I brought my computer with me to check myself in. And the fact that I brought my computer with me to the cardiac ward was without any question the reason why I was in the cardiac ward to begin with. But I now see that in hindsight. But I was able to look up the data. 20 to 25% diagnosed sleeping disorder. When it comes to exercise, 85% of Canadians don't get enough physical activity to prevent a chronic disease. We have increasing rates of overweight and obesity in the country, and also around mental health, we have around 20% of the population struggling with depression or anxiety. So we have grand epidemics that need to be overcome, and I was literally living that in the moment. So being the athlete background-ish type person that does specific things to try to get better in that moment while I was lying in the cardiac ward, I realized I needed to change things. So I registered for Ironman from the cardiac ward and actually started training for Ironman because I've done that type of stuff in the past and I felt quite comfortable trying to get back into an athletic sort of mindset. My first walk was literally around the cardiac ward with the IV post that I was attached to. And I was so exhausted after even 5 minutes of that. That's literally where I started. But over the course of a year, began walking at home. We started to eat a little bit better. We focused on sleep. I started doing a whole bunch of different stuff to manage stress. Judith, my wife, came along the journey with me. And ultimately, over the course of 12 months, was able to go from the cardiac ward, where I began, to finishing my first Ironman triathlon literally exactly 12 months later. And it was not much of an athletic accomplishment. I finished in the middle of the night and an 82-year-old lady blew by me at the finish line. So I was like at the back with that group. But ultimately the reason why I did that and the reason why I was able to do that was because I realized I needed to do things a little bit differently in order to be able to just simply be around for my kids. And that was my daughter at the time. So I had the motivation, right? Like, this is why I was doing the things that I was doing. It was critically important to me. And that drove a number of different changes that I'm going to share with you today around those 4 massive pillars. So the first pillar I want to dig into, because I do really believe that this is the foundation for health, well-being, and our ability to perform and reach our potential in every single discipline, personal or professional. The first area that I think is so fundamentally and critical for us is sleep. That was an interesting groan that just went through the crowd there. So let's dive into this. The reason why this is so important is we have a lymphatic system. You know this, but I'm going to dig into the physiology anyway and run through it and keep it at like a somewhat light level as we go along. But the lymphatic system is critically important for us. If we think about it, we all have lymph. It flows through our bodies all the time, picks up viruses, bacteria, broken down cells, waste products, pulls that into the parallel circulatory system of our lymph vessels, where white blood cells from our immune system can fight off all those invaders. Of course, this is why we feel lymph glands in our neck to see if we're fighting off colds or the flus. This is implicated in cancer. Cancer spreading to the lymph nodes in the underarm would be problematic. So this is a critically important system for our health and our well-being. But you'll notice that it's well mapped and present throughout the body. Up until very recently, we weren't quite sure how the brain accomplishes what the body accomplishes in terms of keeping itself healthy and well and managing fluid movement and lymphatic fluids through the brain tissue. It's an MRI scan of the brain done by Mike Noseworthy at McMaster University, one of my colleagues. I love showing MRIs because it takes us into the inside of the human body. It's just so magical. No needles, no radiation, just quite awesome that we're able to do that. And what it was discovered about 10 years ago when it comes to the brain healing, repair, recovery, and regeneration is that at the microscopic level, as you know, we have 100 billion neurons. The cells that create thinking, problem solving, concentration, focus, all of it. And at night when we sleep, they shrink by about 60%. And all the space opens up inside the brain. And a clear fluid, cerebral spinal fluid, washes through the brain every single night, picks up viruses, bacteria, broken down cells, waste products, toxins, and moves that through the glymphatic system, or the glymphatic system, in order to be able to get that up to a network of lymphatic vessels that line the inside of the skull, that then drain that out into the body every single night while we sleep. So we now know how the brain heals, recovers, repairs, and regenerates itself. We know that that happens efficiently and effectively at night when we sleep. Now we've discovered it happens to work slightly better if you sleep on your side, which means you snore less and your partner loves you more. So we will also do relationship counseling while we're hanging out here together. So we've discovered this critical importance of sleep for us and also what it does in the glymphatic system. It's very, very interesting. If you want to learn about that a little bit more, there was a TED Talk by Jeff Iliff, who was one of the people who discovered this. So if you search TED Talk Sleep and Jeff Iliff, Illiff, you can watch the 15-minute TED Talk from the group that discovered this. I think it's probably about 10 years old now, but a really great, simple TED Talk that highlights the glymphatic system. We've also discovered how much sleep we actually need. So there's 4 different types of sleep, simplifying things obviously, but 4 different types of sleep. We have REM, when you dream, stage 1 and stage 2. Should you be tracking your sleep with a wearable technology, that's often categorized as light or core sleep. And then stage 3, deep sleep. We cycle through those stages of sleep throughout the course of the night in roughly 90-minute increments. Seems to be reasonably good data indicating that if we get 5 complete sleep cycles, 90 minutes each, roughly 7 to 8 hours, that we have the lowest risk for all-cause mortality. So we know that sleep is so critically important that it actually impacts lifespan. Another factor with regards to sleep that seems to be associated with an increased lifespan is consistency of bedtime. I would actually rather that you set a bedtime alarm than a morning alarm. You can go to sleep at the same time every night and the brain learns when to release melatonin, making it easier for you to fall asleep and to stay asleep. Hopefully then you wake up before your alarm clock goes off, because I'd like you to wake up naturally rather than get interrupted through a sleep cycle. And then that just means you move your sleep time earlier and earlier and earlier until you are waking up naturally before your alarm goes off. I know a lot of people are parents as well, and we need to be aware that the younger that you are, the more sleep that you need. So that's from the National Sleep Foundation, and you can see just the younger you are, the more sleep that you need. The other thing about this to recognize is that if you are into exercise training at all, if you have had a physically demanding exercise session during the course of the day, we recommend an extra sleep cycle, so like from 7.5 to 9 hours. If you're going through a stressful time, an extra sleep cycle, get up to 9 hours on the weekend maybe to be able to catch up. The vast majority of groups that I talk to, when I interact with people, and when I had an app that tracked sleep, and the 10,000 people in our database, almost no one's getting to the levels that we want to get to, especially when it comes to deep sleep, which happens in the first half of the night. So we really want to be focusing in on making sure that we are getting good deep sleep. And if you have a wearable, you can track this. If you don't have a wearable, you can wake up, and 30 minutes after you get up in the morning, you can ask yourself, how do I feel? And if you're like, I feel great, then you're getting probably enough deep sleep. And if you're, I'm still tired, then you're probably not getting enough deep sleep. So you don't even need the wearable. You can just literally use yourself as a laboratory and ask yourself how you're feeling. Deep sleep is critically important because that's obviously, as I just explained, when those neurons shrink, that's when the glymphatic system works, that's when we heal and repair and clean out a lot of the toxins from the brain. Critically important, especially in this era, when we're constantly learning. Learning happens at night when those neurons have shrunk, because that's when we grow new connections between neurons inside the brain and we physically encode learning. And right now in this era, especially with AI coming on board and AI note takers and all of the other things that are getting incorporated into medical practice, we need to be learning very, very quickly. And that pace of learning is not going to slow down. It's only going to accelerate. We also have to be really great problem solvers. And the stage for that is set in the second half of sleep. In creativity and problem solving and innovation, the stage for that is set in REM sleep, which occurs mostly in the second half of sleep. which is why giving ourselves permission to get enough sleep is so important, because then you get all of the learning benefits, you get the brain healing, repair, recovery, and regeneration benefits, but then you also set the stage for creativity, innovation, and problem solving. And let's face it, here in this group, what are you doing all day long? You're constantly solving problems for people. The way that works is in REM sleep, multiple different regions of the brain will be active at the same time. Connections are made between those different regions of the brain, and that's why we often say we, quote unquote, put two and two together. That sets the stage for the eureka moment. So it's really interesting how our language sometimes reflects what's actually happening physiologically at the microscopic level. So we're getting a really good understanding now of why we need to sleep. The lymphatic system works during that time, how much sleep we actually need, 5 complete sleep cycles, ballpark 90 minutes each, roughly 7 to 8 hours. A little bit more if you're stressed, a little bit more if you've done some exercise. And there's one core tactic and strategy that I would love to share with you that I think that we can all consider these days that will have a powerful, almost instantaneous impact on your ability to fall asleep and to stay asleep. And I imagine that most of you probably know what I'm about to share with you, which is simply that I think maybe we need to be doing a little bit less of this. With deep love and respect, love you guys. You do incredible work. You take care of people constantly. I understand you need to decompress every once in a while, but I'm not sure that taking a light and shining it into your eyes late at night is going to help you fall asleep or to stay asleep. So that's an MRI scan of the brain. We did that in my lab. Sliced it ahead at the level of the eyes. You're looking at it from above. Obviously, if we zoom in, you can see the eyes there. When we have our devices and we shine them into our eyes late at night, that light passes through the eyeball, hits the back of your eyeball in a structure that looks like this, that converts light into electricity, which then shoots back through your optic nerve into the pineal gland. The pineal gland then senses and knows whether or not it's light out. So when we have these lights shining into our eyes, we are signaling electrically to the pineal gland, it's morning, it's noon, the sun just came up. As a result, it makes it really hard for you to be able to fall asleep and to stay asleep. I would love for you to consider defending your last hour, giving your brain a chance to decompress, to calm down, to deactivate, such that you can gently fall asleep and you can actually stay asleep. I tracked my sleep using a wearable a while ago, and this is the data that I got on a night when I worked right up until the last possible second. And as you can see, for the first few hours of sleep, I was lying in bed with my mind racing, staring at the ceiling. I'm sure you've all been there, all felt that sensation before. And then the next night I had to do something different because I was exhausted, obviously. So I implemented this. And this is a protocol that I wrote up on my iPad, ironically on an airplane when I wasn't sleeping. But whatever, I had some time to think. And I was like, this is how I think I want to make things work. The whole idea was basically we wanted to be able to love life and create an evening routine that allowed us to sleep, rest, recover, and to regenerate. And this was written when I had younger children. So at 6 o'clock, we're doing all the things around getting the kids fed and settled and bathed and into bed. Then a little bit later, there was a chance to hang out with Judith, do dinner with Judith. Judith's my wife, just to be super clear about who I'm hanging out with late at night. But anyway, so all of that stuff. And then a little bit later, we're doing meditation, the gratitude journaling, sort of any sort of foam rolling and therapy. Then into a hot bath, cool shower, just to cool the body off, because the cooling of your body triggers the release of melatonin. Into bed, reading for a little bit before I fall asleep, fiction, ideally, which enabled us to fall asleep. Now, when I did that, and I know this is super complicated, so I've simplified it for you, we now are just teaching the 20-20-20 protocol. The defend your last hour, 3 things, 20 minutes each, that help you to decompress, to calm down, to deactivate your brain. So it could look something like this, like taking a hot bath, doing a little bit of journaling to get your brain disconnected from the stuff that's been happening for you through the day, and reading fiction. Whatever you do, don't watch the news. That will not help you right now. Don't check your email. Don't look at your social media. None of that is going to help you to fall asleep right now. We're basically creating a bit of a gap between your busy days and the intensity of your life and your ability to settle and relax. Now, when I did this, and a couple nights later I tracked my sleep again, you can see that there's a complete difference in the first half of sleep. And instead of being activated with my mind racing all night, I'm in bed, I'm sleeping, I'm in completely deep sleep, which enables you to heal, repair, recover, and regenerate. So really important for us. All right, that's a lot of information. I'm going to roll through a few questions that I often get, and then we'll take a pause and do some interactive stuff.
But the first thing I often get asked about is, what happens if I wake up in the middle of the night? Has anyone ever struggled with that? Like waking up in the middle of the night? Okay, so everyone kind of had a feeling that this might come up. It's normal to wake up a few times during the night. If you wake up and then you fall back asleep relatively quickly, that's totally cool. What happens often, though, is we wake up and the mind starts racing and you can't get back to sleep again. So in order to help you with this one, the number one way of preventing that from happening in the first place is the 20-20-20 protocol that I talked about before. The way that we think about this is you just sort of map out, and I've got this PDF, by the way, and if anyone wants it, just message me at the end. I'll send you the PDF. There's no, you're not giving me your email address or anything like that. Like, there's a download, you can just do this. But we want to be thinking about a couple hours before bed, what do you want to be doing? And then 60 minutes before, 40 minutes before, 20 minutes before. What do you want to be doing to downshift such that when you do get into bed, you can fall asleep and you can stay asleep? If you do wake up in the middle of the night, and you are having a hard time getting back to sleep again, the best tactic that I have found is progressive relaxation. Progressive relaxation, and by the way, we teach this a lot in the military as well. Yesterday I was with the Canadian Forces, and this is one of the things that we were working on. This is helping people in stressful environments be able to settle and to fall back asleep again. The way that this works is you just get set up in your bed, get comfy, couple deep breaths just to settle and bring yourself back into the present moment, and then you contract your feet. And you feel that tension. And then you take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, you relax. You then do your calves, shins, quads, hamstrings, glutes, stomach, low back, chest, upper arm, forearms, neck, face, head. By the way, you can also guide patients through this if they're with you and they're really, really stressed and having a hard time relaxing. You just contract your muscles, deep breath in, exhale, and relax, and notice the difference between tension and relaxation. And as you do this, by the time you're done, you feel like you're floating. You can barely feel your body. And then your mind starts wandering, and it's very easy for you to fall asleep and to get back to sleep again. Another question I get quite often is, are naps okay? Has anyone ever taken a nap and felt horrible for hours? Yes? Okay, so there's two types of naps that work, and then another type of nap that does not work. The first type of nap that works brilliantly is the short power nap. And what happens there is you wake up before you get into deep sleep. So you want to set an alarm, anywhere from 3 to 20 minutes. I actually have an emergency pillow in my car for emergency naps if I need one and I'm somewhere out on the road and I got to fall asleep somewhere. Just put it in, sleep for 20 minutes, get back up, and go. The second type of nap that works brilliantly is the full sleep cycle nap, 75 to 90 minutes. The key on that one is you do not use an alarm because you want to go through the full sleep cycle. So if you have had a very busy week and you're tired, stressed, travel, whatever, working really, really hard, and you get to the weekend, you're like, I'm exhausted, I need a nap, this is what you want to try to go for. The benefit and difference between the power nap is that the power nap just clears adenosine from your brain, the fatigue factors from your brain, and it improves your cognitive capacities. The full sleep cycle nap also provides a growth hormone pulse that heals your body as well. So you get brain and body with the full sleep cycle nap, and just brain recovery and a little bit of fatigue elimination with the power nap. The type of nap that does not work very well is the interrupted nap, where you are waking up 30 to 60 minutes in when the brain is washing itself out. That's when you end up with what feels like sleep inertia, or what some people describe as brain fog. So that's what we want to try to avoid. So short power nap, use an alarm, full sleep cycle nap on the weekend, no alarm, and then you can take advantage of that to try to move yourself forwards. Also, a lot of people these days are thinking about alcohol, and when people start tracking their sleep using wearable devices, they almost instantaneously see the negative impact that alcohol has upon sleep. I love you guys, all of you. If you want to have a drink from time to time, absolutely no stress. I'll have a couple glasses a month now, but not that much. Primarily because alcohol wipes out deep sleep. And of course, that is one of the most important things that we need. So if you want to have a glass of wine on the weekends, no stress. But if we're having 1 or 2 glasses of wine every single night during the week in order to cope with stress, I would submit to you that it is probably not helping you and definitely not serving you. The other really interesting thing that a lot of people are talking about these days is cannabis. What about cannabis? And what we've discovered is that THC, the psychoactive component of cannabis, wipes out REM sleep, the second half of sleep, when you're dreaming, which is associated with creativity, innovation, and problem solving. So although you feel like you're sleeping well because you don't dream, in fact, you're losing out on a critical element of sleep that sets the stage for some of the most important things that we need to be doing during the course of the day. So we are generally not in favor of using THC-based products when it comes to sleep. Also, I've got some friends that microdose CBD and stuff like that, and they're like, I'm so creative. And I'm like, I don't see it. I might want to get up off the couch sometime. Let's go. The other half of the equation when it comes to cannabis, of course, is CBD, and that is the non-psychoactive component. The data is beginning to show that that may help people to fall asleep faster, but it only works for a week or two, maybe 3 weeks, then the effects begin to wear off. So this is a short-term bridge, not a long-term fix. If it's okay for a little while, but probably not something you want to be considering long-term. And I've been talking about wearables quite a bit, and I know a lot of people are using wearables these days. Anyone tracking their sleep right now with some sort of a device? Yeah, so quite a few of you. So we want to make sure that if we are using a wearable to track our sleep, that we know what we're going for. In general, what we're looking to try to achieve is around making sure that we're moving through, definitely through REM, through light or core sleep, depending on what you're tracking with. I think Apple refers to it as core sleep, and some other devices refer to it as light sleep. That would be stage 1 and stage 2. And of course, deep sleep. Ultimately, we want to break it up as around 25% REM, around 50% light or core, and about 25% deep sleep. So a little bit of everything. This will vary tremendously on any given night. But what we're looking to do here is just to try to balance out all of the different types of sleep. And the main reason why is because they all do different things. They're all critically important. It's hard to control, but when you get enough sleep, that's typically the key to getting enough REM. And if you get a really good defend your last hour protocol going so that you're relaxed prior to falling asleep, that's the key to deep sleep. So if you're doing those two things, getting enough sleep, relaxing before you go to bed, in general, this will take care of itself. So just something for you to consider. Another thing about sleep which is critical is getting out of sympathetic mode. So when our sympathetic nervous system is activated, of course, that's our stress response. It's going all the time right now because we're so busy and we're working so hard and there's so much media coming at us, which is deeply problematic because of the state of the world. We want to be shifting ourselves into parasympathetic dominance so that we can recover, we can regenerate, we can digest our food, we can heal. And you can get a general sense of your sympathetic to parasympathetic balance through something called heart rate variability and your resting heart rate. As you look at your sleep data, in general, what we want to try to see is that your resting heart rate drops throughout the course of the night. It should generally trend downwards. If there's one number that you want to try to look for, it's your resting heart rate, which we generally suggest you gather from the lowest heart rate during the last hour of sleep. And if you can get that below 60, below 55, below 50 even, then you are doing really, really well, depending on your age and fitness level and gender. The other side of the equation is heart rate variability, how much your heart rate varies from a beat to beat, which can give you a really good indication of your parasympathetic to sympathetic balance. In that case, it's a different trend. We actually are looking for the highest number, and we want that to increase throughout the course of the night. As you relax, as your nervous system recovers, the variability will actually increase. So in those numbers, we're looking for the highest number possible. And personally, I notice that when I'm over 100, I feel amazing. And again, you're looking for that number sometime in the last hour before you wake up. So if you have a wearable device, you can check that out. If you don't have a wearable, you can simply wake up in the morning and ask yourself, how do I feel? And if the answer is great, then you're all good. You don't need to worry about anything. If you're like, I'm still tired, then we need to work on this. Ultimately, the key message, though, around everything that we've been speaking about today is defend your last hour. I have a little quote for you, and then we'll do some Q&A. Which is simply that increasing your sleep from 5 to 7 hours a night, so like one extra sleep cycle can cut your risk of heart attack or stroke by 45%. So one extra sleep cycle cuts your risk of cardiovascular disease almost in half. Sleep is also involved with cancer, it's also involved with type 2 diabetes, it's also involved with Alzheimer's prediction, it's also involved with mental health. So this is a very important thing for all of us to consider, and even something that we can have a conversation with our patients about. This is research, ironically, by Professor Cappuccino, but still entirely valid for us here today. All right, so does anyone have any questions for me about sleep? Yes. Comments on alcohol and caffeine separately and together. Okay, so I love talking to medical groups because you guys ask multiple questions and then try to combine them to make them as complicated as possible. So thank you for that. So let's break it apart. Alcohol wipes out stage 3-4 deep sleep, so it will decrease sleep quality overall. Caffeine has a negative impact upon sleep for up to 8 hours. So we recommend stopping caffeine intake somewhere around 1 to 2 p.m. if you plan to fall asleep, for example, at like 9 to 10 p.m. at night. So in general, it's like fine in the morning. We decrease it throughout the course of the day because it does have that impact that persists for up to 8 hours. There are fast metabolizers and slow metabolizers, though, genetically. So if you rapidly deal with caffeine quickly, and you can have a cup of coffee and go to sleep and you don't really even notice it, then you're probably a fast metabolizer. I am not. I have 1 cup of coffee and I'm crawling around the ceiling for several days. So I need to really be careful about when I have my caffeine. I do love espresso. It'll be in the morning, just not in the afternoon. The danger that I see right now with people working really, really hard and being super busy and dealing with the intensity of the world, and again, I don't know any individuals in the room, but what the pattern that I see is people are super stressed. They'll have a drink or two at night to try to decompress. That negatively impacts their sleep. They have a shot or two of coffee in the morning to try to get going. And caffeine blocks adenosine, adenosine being the molecule that builds up in your brain when you're tired that we interpret as sleep pressure or fatigue. It simply blocks that. It doesn't get rid of it. So you end up on this cycle of having a couple drinks to get to sleep and then relying upon caffeine in the morning just to get through your day. That's a cycle that then goes on and on and on, and we end up on a downward spiral towards burnout. I would much rather us be a little bit more sensitive to our physiology and think through different ways of getting hydrated, eating better food, getting some exercise, decompressing so you don't need that alcohol, and then in the morning you have a little bit better energy, you need a little bit less caffeine to get going. So that's how I would ramp through all of that one, but I appreciate your question. Anything else? Yes, over here. What about watching TV before bed? So watching TV before bed is kind of like a massive version of this, right? So we have like a small screen, an iPad, bigger screen, computer, bigger screen, and then the television, a massive screen. Also, these flash at you at around 30 to 60 hertz or cycles per second. Your TVs are usually 120 to 240, and they're way brighter. So I would actually suggest that TV might be even more problematic than these devices, although at least with television, it's one show, whereas these, we tend to like doom scroll through a whole bunch of dopamine hits until we are completely exhausted and then fall asleep. When I'm at home, I try to read hard copy books. When I'm on the road traveling, which I am a lot, I read on my iPad. I do turn the brightness all the way down. I do a black background, white screens. I turn on the blue light filter, which you can get at through settings, displays, night shift to get rid of the blue light. And even with all of that, what I've noticed is I get about 10 to 20% deep sleep when I'm on my screen versus when I'm reading a book. On any given night, I don't notice the difference that much. But if it's 2, 3, or 4 nights in a row, I really start to notice it. And then when I get rid of the devices and I get back into reading, I fall asleep, I stay asleep, and I feel so much better. So I appreciate the questions about television. I think that it's an even bigger screen, an even brighter screen, and ultimately what we want to try to do is give ourselves a break from technology. And the bookending your day with no tech is a great way just to build a barrier against the intensity of our lives. So if you can give yourself a little bit of time first thing in the morning not to look at your tech, and a little bit of time at night not to look at your tech, it just gives your nervous system a chance to deactivate such that you can fall asleep and not start your day in a frantic mode, worried about the inbound email that you just got that you have to deal with. Also, the second you look at email, you're on someone else's agenda, which derails your priorities and makes it really hard for you to do what you need to do to be well. So, and every once in a while, we will watch a show. Like we're watching playoff hockey right now with my family, and we watch TV until the game is over, and then we all try to get to sleep. But it's not very often. It's a couple weeks a year. So have some fun every once in a while. Watch a movie, watch a show. But in general, on average, we want to try to minimize that if we possibly can. Hope that's helpful. Yes, we got 3, so I'll start. We'll do 1, 2, 3. Well, actually 4. There's a lot. Okay, here we go. Well, we'll go front to back. Yes. What is the best time to sleep at night? I have looked for data because people have always told me like hours before midnight count for more than hours after midnight. I can't find that data. What we have found, though, is the consistency of bedtime is associated with all-cause mortality and lifespan. So I'd rather you be consistent, whatever that is. Moving back and forth, when you move back and forth with falling asleep time, it's really hard for your body to learn when to release melatonin, making it hard for you to fall asleep and to stay asleep. So consistency of bedtime is key. Having said that, I believe that it's a good idea for humans to follow the light-dark cycles of the sun as much as possible, because we all have a structure inside of our brains called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is sensitive to light and dark. So when the sun goes down, I would like for you to create a digital sunset in your home devices go off. I put dimmer switches in my entire house because my son wasn't sleeping very well. So when I go around the house at 7 o'clock at night, as the sun goes down, I turn down all of the lights in our house, and Adam then just starts stumbling and knocks himself into a wall, and I just drag him and throw him into bed, and he falls asleep. But yeah, replicating the sun going down, creating a digital sunset, aligning yourself with the light, dark cycles of the sun can really be helpful. And then being super consistent is beneficial, but I couldn't find any data on like, does the time of falling asleep matter, other than consistency does. Yes. Is it a problem to use a light to read before bed? So the difference between a device and a nightstand light, for example, is that these flash at you, whereas the nightstand light has a sine wave electrical current, so it's not flashing at you. You can dim it, stable, you can keep it really, really low, read until you're tired, and then once that signal arrives, you can fall asleep. So that's the fundamental difference with that one. Yes, sir. Should you exclude the cellular phones from the bedroom? In general, I think that that's a really great idea because they are so well designed, they are so addictive that if it's there, you are probably going to look at it. And I think that there's this incredible technology that I've discovered. They're called alarm clocks. And literally all that they do is wake you up and tell you the time. There's no GPS, there's no music, there's no movies, and there's no news. Like, it's radical technology. You can actually order one on your phone. It's kind of wild. So yeah, we've tried to get alarm clocks into all of our bedrooms, and I was really nervous about missing my alarm in the morning because I travel a lot in different times. So I actually got one that's battery powered, but then recharges as we go. So I actually found one that works for me, even with all of that. Judith, my wife, uses one that's light based, not sound based, because she likes waking up to a brightening light signal. So yeah, please, yes, again. Oh, connecting the computer modem and Wi-Fi network overnight. Is that what you're? Oh, disconnect. Yeah. So we have a Wi-Fi downstairs. And so one night I went downstairs around 10 o'clock because I was pretty sure that Adam had found his phone and taken it up to his room. And so I killed the Wi-Fi network at 10 o'clock at night, and I heard him scream from upstairs. So I was like, yeah, no, he totally took the phone. So then I was able to go up. So yeah, I think that that's totally a great idea for you to do. Just again, it takes away some of the temptation, if you will. What about melatonin? So melatonin has been shown to reset your sleep cycles after periods of disrupted sleep. So like jet lag, for example, or stress. Data also seems to show that if you take it for longer than 3 weeks, you begin to lose the ability to produce it yourself. So it's a short-term bridge, not a long-term fix. Tonight I'm flying to Europe. I'm flying home on Monday, so I'm like literally in Europe for 36 hours. I will use melatonin in both directions to try to just manage that. But in general, we do not use that much of it. Also, when you buy over-the-counter melatonin, it's usually 3 to 5 times the recommended dose, which is 1 to 2 milligrams, not 3 to 5 that you normally get. So use very, very little if you can. 30 minutes before you want to fall asleep. Short-term bridge, not a long-term fix. Also, it's incredibly powerful and may disrupt female reproductive hormones. So I know a lot of teenagers are using it right now, and I'm like, please, let's fix our lifestyle, not rely on an external medicine on this one. Of course, if you're going through a hard time and you need a reset, absolutely, but it's a short-term bridge, not a long-term fix. Hope that that's helpful. Come over here. Can re-explain the low heart rate versus high heart rate thing? Sure, and this is something that you can talk about with your parents as well, which is great. So the way that this works is that your heart rate will work while your body will work while you sleep to digest food, to deliver blood and oxygen to tissues, to deliver nutrients to tissues so that you can heal, you can repair, you can recover, you can regenerate. And therefore, when all of those physiological requirements are happening over the course of the night, your heart will pump blood in order to meet all of those demands. As you recover throughout the course of the night, in general, your heart rate will drop as those recovery processes run their course and complete. So your heart rate should go from hopefully dropping below 60 beats per minute when you fall asleep, and then getting really low, maybe even below 50 beats. And for some people that are doing endurance training, it may even go below 40 beats per minute later on at night. So that's one thing for you to track, is your heart rate dropping. The sympathetic nervous system to parasympathetic nervous system balance is what shows up and is reflected in your heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is that when your heart beats, like beat, 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 when you're super stressed, there's a fairly significant feed forward drive from the brain to the heart. And that results in a very rhythmic, repetitive heart rate. Just think about when you're exercising, it's beat, 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 beat. When you're nervous or get scared or startled, it's beat, 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 beat. There's no variability. It's like super rhythmic. Variability is low. So high stress is low heart rate variability. Sympathetic nervous system activation, low heart rate variability. As you relax, as you calm down, as you shift from sympathetic nervous system stress activation to parasympathetic system activation, where you are in more of a recovery mode, your heart rate variability will increase. It'll be beat, 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 beat. The variability will be all over the place because your heart is relaxed, your nervous system is relaxed, and you're missing the feed-forward drive from the brain. So that will be reflected in an increase in your heart rate variability over time, over the course of the night. And you want as high of a number as possible. Most wearables randomly check your heart rate variability during the day. It will be super low because you're going about your day, you're doing your work. That's okay that it's low. You need that to be able to perform. But when you're sleeping, we want parasympathetic activation and a high heart rate variability. I hope that that's a better explanation. I took the time to explain it properly that time. Thank you very, very much. We'll go over here.
You mentioned sleeping on our sides to avoid to help us with snoring. But how about for overall health? Is there a specific left or right side when we sleep?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, no, I did talk about, I joked slightly about sleeping on your side and snoring a little bit less and how that improves relationships, that more as a way to get you all laughing. And I know that this group, more than any other group, is aware of obstructive sleep apnea and things that you can do to mitigate that. I'm not 100% sure about the differences between sleeping on your back, stomach, and side to side for general health. Other than when you are sleeping on your side, it's a little bit easier to maintain an open airway when you sleep. So unfortunately, I would freely admit that I actually don't know the answer to your question. Thank you for pointing out that I don't know the answer to that to all of the people here in the audience. I appreciate it tremendously. Yes, sir.
Yes, I would like to know if there is a correlation between the heartbeat and the glucose monitor sensor and the device reading input.
Got it. So a lot of, in addition to heart rate sensors and the wearable devices that we can get heart rate and heart rate variability, a lot of people are now also wearing continuous glucose monitors to look at blood glucose levels. So your heart rate will be reflective of your overall metabolic demands, whether that's exercise or stress or the recovery process that happens during sleep. You can also get heart rate variability, which is reflective of parasympathetic versus sympathetic nervous system activation. Your continuous glucose monitor will test your blood for glucose, which of course depends upon what foods that you have eaten, how they're being digested, and then making their way into your bloodstream. The one thing that might link up between your heart rate and the glucose monitor is stress. So when you are stressed, your body will increase its production of insulin. Insulin will go out into your bloodstream and promote the various different ways of absorbing sugars into your muscles and your liver. And so stress may change your glucose levels, and when you monitor that, you'll see that, plus then also your heart rate as well. I think people can learn a great deal about the impact of food on their insulin response and on their glucose response. So I think it's an interesting tool that you may even be able to use with some of your people. There's a lot of questions, so I'm going to keep moving. Yes, sir. Oh, sorry, right here.
What about the red lights that people are using for at night?
Red light therapy is an area where there's a lot of research coming out. It's definitely, I'm not sure if it's conclusive at all right now. There's a lot of really radical claims. So here's how I am currently thinking about it, but it's like, I'm not sure. In general, the idea is that red light is a wavelength that penetrates the skin to about maybe a centimeter. So if someone's making a claim that perhaps it helps the skin, perhaps it helps with hair loss, I should probably use it, apparently. Perhaps it helps with a superficial ligament tear or a tendon tear or something like that, where if it's within a centimeter of the skin, maybe. And the mechanism probably is red light acting on cytochrome C in the electron transport chain in the mitochondria to increase ATP. The mechanism is possibly there. But if someone is trying to say that it affects the brain, is it making its way through the skull? Probably not. Is it going to affect digestion, which I've heard? Probably not. Anecdotally, my wife Judith really finds it helpful for seasonal affective disorder. I couldn't find any research really backing that up, so that's a full-on maybe placebo effect. So take it with a huge grain of salt, but there's a potential physiological mechanism there. My go-to way of determining is it maybe or is it like definitely not is if it's within a centimeter of the surface of the skin, possibly. Anything else, I'm like, yeah, no, probably not happening. So you could look into it a little bit more that way. I think there's one. We'll maybe do a couple more and then we'll move on.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. You talked about reading before bed. What about listening to an audiobook before bed, or if you wake up during the night and you can't sleep?
Oh, no, it's such a wonderful question. Thank you. What about reading and audiobooks, specifically before bed? My son, Adam, who struggles with focus, loves audiobooks. They really, really, really help him. The idea is that what we're trying to do is to get the brain to settle. And when you're reading fiction or listening to an audiobook and you are reading fiction, what's happening is that the words, whether they're on the page or the sounds that are making their way to your brain, are recreating images of the story, which is almost identical to dreaming. So you're creating a dreamlike state as you read the fiction, as you listen to the audiobook. What we want to try to avoid, though, is reading an audiobook that is related to your profession or something that is activating. So if you're reading about like new mechanisms for doing a root canal, like that's probably not going to, well, maybe it will help you to fall asleep. I'm not sure. It would definitely, but we want to be reading a story or listening to a story. If you are listening to an audiobook, though, it's important to put it on a timer, or else it will continue after you fall asleep. So for Adam, we have to put a 30-minute timer on it, which I think he has hacked now to just keep going to whatever he wants. And that's probably also on his burner phone that he and his buddies have found somewhere. So, but yeah, the audiobook is what we're trying to use to recreate the dreamlike state so you can calm the mind and to fall asleep. Okay, we'll do one more.
Thank you so much. Any radiation effect on the sleep, like any devices that we have in the house that have active radiations that can affect the sleep cycle?
What about various different EMF frequencies and those frequencies and their impact upon us? I've looked into that, and I think that there's a possibility that maybe there's a physiological effect, but of the 100 things I'm worried about, that would be like bottom 5. And the main reason why is because you're constantly exposed to cell phone signals. You're constantly exposed to multiple Wi-Fi signals. There's not a lot we can do about that one. So in terms of the things that I'm worried about, I would far rather that you worry about going for a walk, eating more vegetables, calling a friend, getting some exercise in, doing your meditation, reading a book. Those are proven, guaranteed to elevate your health. Whereas the EMF signals from Wi-Fi and all those 5G towers that were supposed to kill us, that stuff, it's like really low down, largely because it's completely out of our control. And also the data doesn't really confirm if there is a measurable physiological impact. And I have looked, so I'm not really concerned about that one. If everything else was perfect and I had nothing else to think about, I'd be like, yeah, I should probably get some other ways of getting my internet and hardwire it instead of using Wi-Fi, but I'm not super concerned about that one. Okay, everyone, let's keep rolling and move through some stuff. And after this next section, we'll take a little bit of a break just so that we can breathe and stand up. But I do want to talk about nutrition a little bit now because, of course, we're talking about health. We're talking about wellness. And we want to make sure that we're addressing this because it's such a huge thing. And people love food, so why not think about it? I love doing expeditions and taking people all over the world. That was an image that I took on an expedition a few years ago. We took a group of youth ambassadors. They ran 5 marathons in 5 consecutive days through the Thar Desert in the northwest corner of India, right near the Pakistan border. Stunningly beautiful, absolutely magical. Kids came to our campsites at night. It was just amazing and fun and fantastic. We were there in partnership with the World Health Organization, looking at issues related to health in rural communities around the world. And so as part of that, one of the days I went into one of the villages and found this gentleman selling all of the traditional Indian foods. It was amazing. Anti-cancer, anti-heart disease, anti-type diabetes, anti-metabolic syndrome, anti-depression. Fantastic. You will also notice that all the colors of the rainbow are represented. As an aside, there are some interesting data that seems to suggest that white, green, and purple vegetables have molecules, polyphenols, and flavonoids that are anti-cancer. Red, orange, yellow have veggies have molecules and polyphenols and flavonoids that are anti-cardiovascular disease. So white, green, purple, anti-cancer, red, orange, yellow, anti-cardiovascular disease. Anyway, all of that was there. I took that photo and I turned my body 90 degrees and I took that photo. And as those foods are getting into India, China, Brazil, Malaysia, Kenya, our schools, our businesses, our homes, the diseases of the West are following. So we need to do things a little bit differently. And by the way, I'm all over having a treat from time to time. We just want to keep this as like a little bit and like a little bit less, right? There's no demonization here. There's no right or wrong. There's not any good or bad. It's just a little bit more, a little bit less. We'd like a little bit more fruits and veggies, a little bit less of the processed foods. That's all that we're trying to get across on this one. But what has really fascinated me about nutrition over the last decade or so as we've been doing this work is the emerging discovery that the types of foods that we eat impact our brain. And very specifically, if we think about the brain and we dive deeper at the molecular level, as I mentioned earlier, we have 100 billion neurons. These are the cells that create thinking, problem-solving, concentration, focus, all of it. And at the microscopic level, at the neural junctions between those neurons, neurotransmitters move back and forth. And that's what we experience as thinking and all of the cognitive capabilities that we have developed for ourselves. What's interesting to me is that those neurotransmitters are created and are responsive to the foods that we eat. And when we have foods that are high in protein, that helps to stimulate the production of neurotransmitters that help us to concentrate and to focus. We have healthy carbohydrates, that supplies us with the energy for our neurons to use to create electricity, which again, we then experience as thinking. The key thing that we're discovering about carbohydrates is that fiber is so good for us. And when it comes to brain health, when we have foods that are high in fiber, that helps to feed our healthy microbiome. And of course, the microbiome creates neurotransmitters that make their way to the brain. So one of the ways in which we can improve our mental health is high fiber. And of course, the carbohydrates themselves are what we use for energy for our brain and for our body as well. We're just looking to minimize the amount of simple sugar, not eliminate, just minimize, because high processed food diets are associated with a decreased size of the hippocampus, the structure inside your brain that's responsible for learning, the creation of memories, and also probably navigation and amongst a bunch of other things. So broadly speaking, as your grandmother could tell you, healthy carbohydrates, healthy proteins, and of course, now we're also learning about healthy fats. Healthy fats being really important for the health of our brain tissue. If you look between those blood vessels, the brain is white. The reason why the brain is white is because there's so many omega-3 fatty acids which are used to create myelin, which wraps around the branches of the neurons in our brain and protects them from damage, just like bark on the branch of a tree. So basics always win. Healthy proteins, healthy carbs, healthy fats. And when we do that and we decrease the amount of processed food that we're having, that helps us to mitigate the impact of stress on our brains and on our bodies. Because when we're experiencing a stress response, that sometimes can lead to oxidation and inflammation, something I'm sure that you are all quite familiar with. My team at U of T published a review article on this. That's the model that we published around the pathways of oxidation and inflammation, simply being that we are moving from some sort of a mechanical or metabolic stress towards some form of structural actual damage, which then creates the analogy that I use to explain this to kids, for example, when I'm presenting this information, is it's kind of like a forest fire just went through all of your cells. That creates all of these signaling molecules that then circulate throughout your tissues to stimulate and spark adaptation and regrowth of those tissues and healing of those tissues, which then leads to stronger muscles. It then leads to more resilient neurons and ultimately adaptation where we regrow and end up in a better place. The reason why I include this is because it's guiding the core message that we've been sending lately about nutrition, which is that I don't want us to be thinking about it so much as fuel, which is what we've traditionally thought of. I want us to be thinking about it a lot more in terms of healing. And the easiest way for us to gather this is just to consider eating the rainbow of fruits and vegetables, because every single fruit and vegetable, every single different color has a different vitamin, mineral, polyphenol, and flavonoid profile, which heals, repairs, recovers, and regenerates a different tissue or metabolic pathway within the body. So it's super simple, super straightforward. I know a lot of people are seeing a lot of extreme content on the internet right now on various different social media channels, and I would like you to throw all of that away. If you see anything that's extreme, anything that's really controversial, let it settle, wait till the research is sure of what's going on, and then maybe move forwards with it. But simplicity, balance, and basic logic always wins when it comes to nutrition. It's way too complicated. Everyone's getting medical degrees on TikTok. So we really just need to make sure that we're grounding ourselves in just the basics and doing the simple things right, because that will always win. Someone asked me about caffeine earlier. Caffeine is a powerful performance-enhancing substance. Seems to have peak benefits 30 to 60 minutes after you take it. There is a withdrawal effect 3 to 4 hours later. So we use this as a tool, not as a crutch. But both coffee and tea have polyphenols and flavonoids that have downstream positive benefits. So caffeine is the drug. It's a performance-enhancing drug. A tiny bit for performance, a lot probably not good. But the molecules from the coffee beans and the tea leaves do have positive benefits for us. For example, green tea has green tea catechins, and those molecules have been shown to have an antidepressive effect, so it can actually improve our mental health. The way that we're kind of trying to explain it and build this into people's lives is that you can begin your day with a little bit of coffee, has a little bit more caffeine. Later in the day, you can move to green tea, which has a lot less caffeine in it. And then later in the day, if you want to still get hydrated and have something that tastes good, we move to herbal tea that has no caffeine in it whatsoever. So that's just the pathway that we've been following. I have been using a ton of herbal tea recently. I'm really enjoying it. I also realized that I had a little flash of realization the other day that I'm now saying, as a 54-year-old guy, I'm like, you should drink a lot of herbal tea. And 20-year-old Greg would be disgusted at that realization. But I am now at a point of my life where I really enjoy herbal tea. And I've discovered that it's actually really good for us. It has all these polyphenols and flavonoids that are fantastic for us. So it's something I've added because it helps me stay hydrated. We know that water is so good for us. In order to drink more water, what we often say is just add a little bit of citrus fruit to it. If you want to use the soda streams to put a little bit of bubbles into your water, that's totally fine too. We're just moving away from the sodas. We're moving away from the diet sodas towards liquids that actually rehydrate us. But the rehydration not only just helps to feel better, and there's of course half your vitamins are dissolved in water, which then get moved throughout your body, but it also powers your Krebs cycle, your mitochondria. And that's the process from grade 10 bio that you probably remember, whereby we break down the foods that we eat in order to create energy. And if you look at that graph, you'll see that there's 4 inputs, and those 4 inputs, the blue circles, are water. This is how the body creates energy, and it needs water in order to make it happen. So if you need more energy during the course of your day, please consider sipping water throughout the day to stay hydrated, keep your brain functioning well, keep your body functioning well, and have the energy that you need to get through your day to accomplish the tasks that you want to accomplish. I'll just walk you through the day quickly, and then we'll do some questions. Breakfast, super simple. What we're looking for is balance, proteins, carbs, healthy fats, real food that you recognize as food. We've been doing a lot of overnight oats recently in my family. The reason why I throw this up is because it's cheap, it's simple, you make it on Sunday, lasts for 3 days, and you're good to go. It's quite funny. When I throw up recipes, everyone takes photos. They take like 30 seconds to pull together. I have spent thousands of hours figuring out how to take MRI images of the inside of the body, and no one takes photos of my MRI images. Everyone takes photos of the recipes, and I'm okay with that. Let's move on. The second thing is your morning snack. We encourage high fiber. And the reason why is it stabilizes your blood sugar, slow digesting energy, that keeps your insulin levels constant and enables you to get through your day. I'm a big fan of nuts and seeds. I know with allergies and stuff like that, you've got to be super careful with this, but that's my go-to midday. Lunch, we're looking at, again, balance, proteins, carbs, healthy fats. We lean a little bit more into protein here because of its impact on concentration and focus and giving you stable blood sugar so that you can get through your afternoon without that crash. And an example would be something like this. And again, if you look through, there's veggies, there's proteins, there's healthy fats, all of the things that you need. We're just looking for balance as much as possible. Easy hack here, if you're making dinner, make a little bit more, take the dinner, pack it for the next day so you're on the road and you can take it to your office with you and just grab something while you are there. If you want to have something fun, dark chocolate, huge win, 70% cocoa or above because, and by the way, everyone, a piece, not a brick, just to be super clear on that one. The flavonoids in dark chocolate may increase vascular reactivity, the stretchiness of the blood vessels, which may improve blood flow and circulation oxygen delivery. Afternoon snacks are a little bit more carbohydrate based. We love recommending berries. Blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, all great for you. You can take half a pint, rinse them in water, have them in the afternoon, snack on them. There's a little bit of sugar to keep your brain going, and all sorts of antioxidant molecules that specifically help your brain. So that's why we love those in the afternoon. As brain fatigue accumulates throughout the course of the day, this is a great way to deal with that as we move through your afternoon. Dinner is back to just general protein, carbs, healthy fats, balance with one little addition to it. If you have had a stressful day, spices are powerful antioxidants. So don't be afraid to go for a few more spices with dinner. And if we're very fortunate to live in a country that's highly multicultural, and we're able to access foods from many different cultures. So foods from Southeast Asia have incredible spices in them. Foods from the Caribbean, from Africa, all incredible spices. So don't be afraid to sample from around the world, because most of those cuisines are great for us because they're antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. Whew, that's a lot. So I will pause there, and we'll just do a few questions about nutrition. We'll run around with the microphone again.
Yes, corn has taken a big hit. I noticed you had corn up there a couple times, and of course, I'm a great fan. I worked at Green Giant for several summers, and it's one of those things that I just have a cultural attachment to. Would you care to comment on corn? Low amount of amino acids, so on and so forth. Although there has been printed literature in the Scientific American that they tried to introduce amounts of lysines into genetically modified corn. Would you care to comment on that for me, please?
I'm afraid to actually get, you clearly know far more than I do about this topic. So, but I'll very briefly say that in general, the philosophy on that is that when you have vegetables and they're in their natural form, like corn, for example, that there's fiber, there's carbohydrates, there's vitamins, there's minerals, and that sounds fantastic. I think the extreme processing of corn into high fructose corn syrup has been pretty clearly demonstrated to be not that fantastic. And those would be the extreme spectrums of like really good for you, not awesome for you. And with everything, it's about balance. So a little bit here and there, that's fine. It's in some products that are okay, and therefore it's cool. But we always gravitate towards eat real food that you recognize as food, make it yourself, have it with family and friends, and you will win 90% of the battles. So all of the details that you mentioned are beyond my specific knowledge of that one specific type of food, but that's what my thoughts on that one are pretty consistent. It's a general way of thinking about it, and I think corn, because it's so high in fiber, is a great option to include as part of a meal or two throughout the course of the week. It'd be awesome. Cool. Yes.
Could you comment on intermittent fasting, metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, and weight management in 30 seconds?
Yeah, sure. I had no idea that question was coming. Let's talk about intermittent fasting. So here's how this started. Basically, most North Americans and European cultures would eat within an 8-hour window, sleep for 8 hours, and that's when you would fast. So your fasting is basically during the time that you are asleep. All the rest of the time is when we would be eating. So it's sort of an 8 and 16 pattern. The way that this was initially sort of discovered was that when people were fasting for Ramadan, which is you eat when the sun is down and you do not eat when the sun is up, that gets you to a 12 and 12 pattern. So it's sort of 4 hours less time to eat. And in that group, what they discovered was a 30 to 50% reduction in inflammatory markers, which is great. Inflammation is associated with cancer, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, Alzheimer's. So it's a reduction in inflammation that persisted for 4 to 6 weeks after Ramadan was over. And if you look, all 5 major religions around the world have a fasting protocol built into them. So it's a universal human truth. Around the world for thousands of years, people have been doing trial and error on some form of intermittent fasting. Of course, humans being what they are, they push it further and the research looked at 8 and 16 as what most people typically think of as intermittent fasting. Eat within an 8-hour window, fast for 16 hours. The results were incrementally a little bit better, so I think you can get most of those benefits at 12 and 12. If you add exercise to it, it's an exponential amplifier. So how do we get most of those benefits? Most of those benefits can be achieved in a 12 and 12 pattern. How do we get to that? It's when you're done dinner, don't snack. That gets almost everybody to a 12 and 12 pattern to take advantage of this. There's been other common in the internet realm discussions around fasting for like a 72-hour water fast, a 1-week water fast, a 40-day water fast. That's medical, and I would just be like, if you wanted to do that under medical supervision, possibly there's some benefits there. This is the one that seems to be getting a lot of traction. I've looked into the research a fair bit. I think it's compelling, and the way to do it super easy is just get to 12 and 12 and just don't snack after dinner. I travel a lot. When I travel, I just simply don't eat on airplanes, and that helps me to skip a couple meals a week, and it makes me feel a little bit better and manage travel a little bit better. What the research seems to indicate is that when we practice intermittent fasting, it does help us to shift into a parasympathetic dominance. So that's one thing that has been looked at. It appears to have an impact upon the effectiveness of chemotherapy. So maybe if you were going through cancer treatment, this might be something that would be a modulator of that. Of course, autophagy has been well demonstrated with this particular strategy, something to consider. Other research seems to indicate there's an improvement in BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, that stimulates the growth of new neurons inside the brain. So it's something to consider. However, no one under the age of 21 should do it. You should not do this if you have any history whatsoever of problematic relationship or difficult relationship with food, which I know many, many people do. So for kids, absolutely not. For anyone that struggles with their relationship with food, absolutely not. In general, if you wanted to skip snacks after dinner, I think this is definitely something that you would consider. And the easiest way to think about that is just a 12 and 12 pattern will win. But ultimately, the huge win with nutrition is always just thinking about it in terms of healing. Is this food helping me to heal my body and brain? And that will get you to 99% of the benefits. I think intermittent fasting is somewhat complicated, a little bit difficult, and may or may not be something you can do forever, which is always my criteria when talking about nutrition, is like, can I do this forever? And if the answer is yes, then I'm like, build it in, build that habit. If it's something you're gonna do for 3 weeks, it will not help you, because as soon as you stop doing it, the benefits will go away. So that's my 30-second answer on intermittent fasting. All right, cool.
Can you comment on what you think is a good source of water? Bottled water, filtered, those types of water, tap water? What are good sources of water?
So what about the different sources of water? In general, when it comes to nutrition, simple wins because you can always do it. So we're very, very fortunate in Canada that we have our tap water is drinkable and largely healthy. I've been to 55 countries around the world and cycled through Africa for 5 months and spent the entire 5 months worried about where am I going to get my next bottle of water. So I've been places where you can't get it. It's catastrophic. We're very fortunate here to have access to healthy water. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion lately about plastics and microplastics. So if you happen to be able to gravitate towards glass, I think that's probably a good idea. I bought a bottle of water from a company named Voss. I'm not sponsored and not getting kickbacks on that one, but it's a beautiful glass bottle. And I've got one on my desk at home and I've got one on my desk at work. So I bought two and I just refill it all the time. What gets people to drink a lot more water is citrus. So I drop lemon, lime, orange in it. Makes me drink water more. Some people like cucumber, some people like lime. And that's that one. If you want to filter your home water, you can absolutely do that. I have a water filter at home from a company called Seychelles, like the islands. So if you wanted to check that one out, that's the one that we do. Sometimes I use it, sometimes we don't. But in general, I keep it simple. Eat more veggies, drink a lot of water. If you want to filter it, that's cool. And probably glass is a little bit better than plastic right now. But again, don't overcomplicate things. But I hope that's helpful. Yes.
This is a question regarding a previous topic. When you recommended reading a book in the night before going to sleep, is there any particular light you recommend, like a yellow or white color?
So what about different types of lights that you could have on your nightstand in order to illuminate your book while you are reading? We just want people off their devices. If you have a reasonable night light that is not that bright, that's for the win. And again, it's a sine wave AC current that you usually get, so it's not flashing at you. It's a constant source of light. So just keep it as small as possible, as dim as possible, and that will enable you to read your book without getting as activated as you would if you were using your device. I'm pointing to my chest because my phone is right here. So Maybe one or two more. Yes.
Adding a question on the water, like the recent about the alkaline water in the market, any special comments on that? Is it helpful, especially with the people who has rheumatoid arthritis or any kind of inflammation they are fighting in the body?
Got it. So what about alkaline water? My take on alkaline water is that if you have water and it makes its way to your stomach is so acidic that even if your water is alkaline, which it probably isn't by the time that it gets to you, it would be immediately acidified in your stomach. Would that change? So let's assume that somehow the alkaline water makes its way into your bloodstream. Would it change the pH of your blood? I don't think it would, because the instant that your blood pH changes at all, your chemoreceptors that taste the blood coming out of your aortic arch increase or decrease your breathing. So if your blood is acidic, you will breathe harder, you will blow off CO2, and through the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, that will balance out the hydrogen ions almost instantaneously. Hyper unlikely that they would make that difference in alkalinity would make it to your tissues. So I think physiologically, if you follow the pathway, there's a 0% chance that drinking alkaline water has any physiological impact. Save your money, buy some vegetables. Then the other extreme is hydrogen water, which is kind of like oxygen air. Makes no sense whatsoever. So that one as well, you just punt that one as well. It's just not something we want to be thinking about. So I hope that I didn't ruin your investment in a company of any kind, but yeah, that's what we'd say on that one. Yes.
I'm just wondering if you could comment on what time you should stop eating before bed.
Interesting. What time to stop eating before bed? Number one thing to consider is, are you getting enough food during the course of the day to fuel your energy levels? So if you feel good most of the day, awesome. Second thing to consider, are you having healthy enough foods such that your overall health and well-being is as optimal as it can be given all of the stuff that's happening? Vitamins, minerals, polyphenols, flavonoids, fiber, all this stuff. So as healthy as possible, and then the right amounts that you have great energy during the course of the day. If all of that is sorted, then we can begin to think about maybe we want to create a time at night when you stop eating, so that you can fall asleep, you can stay asleep, and then you feel good the next day. I said, as I talked about earlier, when it comes to intermittent fasting, if you can try to get to that 12 hours on, 12 hours off pattern, that's a huge win. So not snacking at night might be a good strategy for you. I've heard people say the 3-2-1 rule. So 3 hours before falling asleep, no more food. 2 hours before sleep, no more water, so you're not getting up all night to pee. And 1 hour before you go to sleep, no more technology. So that 3-2-1 is an easy way to remember it, maybe to talk about with your patients. So hopefully that's helpful. And we'll do like one or two more. Yes.
Water that's cold versus room temperature.
Water that's cold versus room temperature, or maybe even warm as well. I spent some time with someone who's an expert in traditional Chinese medicine when I was going through my cardiomyopathy, viral myocarditis, and she was quite insistent upon warm water, not cold water. I've searched for the data and the research to back that up. I can't find any, but she's also basing it on 3,000 years of trial and error and a lot more experience than I have. So maybe there's something there. Maybe there's not. I don't know. I've looked for data. I can't find any. The real answer is, what do you enjoy? So if you like drinking cold water and that gets you to drink more cold water, fantastic. If you like it warm and that's easier for you, phenomenal. I am really into, as I've spoken about lately, herbal tea. I'm loving the herbal tea, in which case the water is hot. So that happens to be at this stage of life what's working. But yeah, no, I couldn't find any data on hot versus cold. The more you drink, the better hydrated you'll be. That's the win. So just do what you love. If you have other data I'm not aware of, please let me know afterwards and I'll completely change my tune. Yes.
Could you please comment on gluten and dairy with respect to inflammation markers?
Got it. So gluten and dairy on inflammation markers. I love speaking to highly educated groups because you guys merge your questions and do multiple questions at the same time. So gluten and dairy. Let's just break that apart. Gluten. If you are gluten intolerant, obviously that's a problem, and reducing that in your diet will be key. You will know severe gastrointestinal distress. My nephew, who is gluten intolerant, not cool. Then there's gluten sensitivity. So you may be not gluten intolerant, but it may cause some issues some of the time. And again, being sensitive to that and learning what foods work for you and what foods don't work for you can help you to navigate. Other people can have all the gluten and have no, they don't notice it, and that would be my wife. She has all the bread all the time, and she's totally fine and does nothing for her. I am sort of in the middle, so I don't feel good when I have that, and my nephew is completely intolerant, so we've got all of the above in my family. Makes for some super interesting Thanksgiving get-togethers. On the dairy side of things, I think that there's a lot of data that seems to suggest that dairy has good health impacts for us, and there's a significant amount of data that shows that dairy can be problematic. Whenever there's a situation where you have evidence in both directions, I'm like, I don't know, and I'm not sure. And I think that if we were really not emotionally connected to it whatsoever, and you just look at the data, you'd say, yeah, sometimes it's shown to be good, sometimes it's not. So at this point in time, our messaging around dairy is that if you like dairy and it makes sense for you, then carry on. And like anything, a little bit is good, a lot is not. Balance is fine. And if it doesn't work for you and it doesn't make you feel good, or you notice that you have gastrointestinal response to it, then maybe there's something else that you can do. My family tends to use a little bit of dairy. We also have oat milk for coffee. We have almond milk if we're doing other things, and we have a little bit of cashew milk for other stuff, and I've got macadamia milk, which is spectacular and also 8 million calories. So we've got a little bit of everything, which is probably the if you wanted to think about what do I do moving forward, it's like a little bit of everything, and then you're going to get all of the benefits with none of the drawbacks of all of the above. So balance is the key, though. The message really is just about balance on that one. Inflammation, you asked about specifically, and I think there's some data, some research that shows that it increases inflammation, and other research that shows that it decreases inflammation. So on that one, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure. We do it all. Okay, last one. Yes, right in the middle.
If you're a vegetarian and you are taking omega-3s and multivitamins for a long time, is it okay for you or not?
So if you're vegetarian and you're taking omega-3s and vitamins for a long time, is that okay? So we all know each other now. We've been hanging out for an hour. We're all best friends. So I'm going to make a joke, and I'm going to begin the joke with like, I love you, you're awesome, you're doing an incredible job in the world, and I'm just going to make a little joke to have fun, and then we'll break that down, okay? So I've set that out there. The joke is, if you have a bad diet and you take supplements, you'll have expensive urine, right? So it will not, it's like you can't outrun a bad diet. You can't have, junk food all the time and then go for a run and expect things to work out. You, however, just said you're a vegetarian, which probably means that, broadly speaking, your diet is quite good, because there's two types of nutritional strategies that are associated with reduced instances of almost every chronic disease. The first one is plant-based, vegetarian, and the other one is Mediterranean. So if you're generally eating Mediterranean, great. If you're generally eating vegetarian, amazing. Against the backdrop of that, as organic as you can afford, low processing as much as possible, and you'll take it exponentially a little bit better. Having said all of that, omega-3 fatty acids are good for us, although there's some emerging data about maybe not for dementia, but that's something to be teased out. So if you have fish, you'll get the omega-3s. There's many sources of omega-3s in plant-based sources. Chia, hemp hearts, avocado, coconut, olive oil, right? So there's ways of getting omega-3s without taking a supplement. And then if you want to take a multivitamin, that's totally fine. What I've been doing probably for the last decade is every year I go get my blood work done, and I ask them to also add the vitamin and mineral panel. And if I notice that I'm low in something, I'll supplement to that. So I notice I'm low most recently in vitamin D, so I've increased my vitamin D during the winter, and I also noticed I was low in magnesium, so I'm supplementing with a little bit of magnesium, but it's based on what my blood work showed. But if you want to have a multivitamin, that's totally cool, but it won't fix, if you're going to fast food all the time and you take a multivitamin, you're wasting your money. But if you're doing quite well and you want to just top it up, then that's great. It will just make sure you're not missing anything, there's no gaps. So that's how you think about that one. Let's talk a little bit about exercise, and then we'll get into the mindset stuff. So around exercise, we do know that there's a whole bunch of amazing data that seems to suggest that your muscles, of course, benefit tremendously from physical activity. The other area that's fantastic for us when it comes to physical activity is all of your internal organs. So I was bored one day at Sick Kids, so I jumped into the MRI and MRI'd myself, and so I managed to grab a thoracic cavity scan. You can see my lungs there, my heart, liver, pancreas, digestive tract. All of those get better when we exercise, which is amazing. We also move fluids through our lymphatic system. So people who exercise on a daily basis move fluids through the lymphatic system. We know that this is related to your immune system function. So when we exercise on a daily basis, we have 75% lower risk for colds and flus. There's also some compelling data that seems to suggest that if you exercise daily for 15 minutes at the intensity of walking, that you have a 24 to 40% lower risk for 13 different types of cancer. Like, how cool is that? So, and it doesn't need to be very long, 15 minutes. Doesn't need to be super intense. It can be walking, so you don't need to go to the gym. You don't need to break a sweat. You just simply need to go for an easy walk every day, and you get all of those benefits. If you are consistent with it, you increase the number of red blood cells that you have. Of course, these carry oxygen to supply your body and brain with the molecule that they need to create energy. If you're consistent with it for longer than 3 weeks, you'll increase the number of mitochondria that you have. These are the energy factories inside your body that break down the food that you eat to create more energy. And recent discoveries around telomere length and strength are also really compelling. On the end of your DNA, there lies little telomeres. These are the caps on the end of your DNA that protect your DNA from fraying. That being one of the primary potential theories behind why we age. And what we've discovered is that exercise lengthens and strengthens your telomeres, caps on the end of your DNA. And people who are 55-year-old runners have the same telomere length and strength as 25-year-olds. So how cool is that? Exercise actually keeps your DNA young. Now, at the Hospital for Sick Children, when we did exercise medicine research for many, many years, we did a fairly significant study on cystic fibrosis. And what Dr. Jane Schneiderman, who was on our team, discovered was that the children who were the most generally, habitually, physically active had the lowest rate of lung function decline. CF being a lung disease, it's genetic. There's progressive problems with lungs that accumulate over time. But when we do physical activity, it slows the rate of lung function decline. We then looked at that in a number of different disease conditions and found the same pattern. This goes beyond just children. If we look at this over the course of the lifespan, there's a direct relationship between the hazard ratio for mortality and our physical activity, with the more physical activity that we do consistently leading to a longer lifespan. So this is really, really important for us. It helps every single tissue within our body, lengthens lifespan, lowers mortality. But what we have discovered, especially what Dr. Jane Schneiderman discovered, was that it doesn't really matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you lift weights, it doesn't matter if you go for a walk, you don't need to hit certain heart rate zones, if you train for marathons or CrossFit or yoga or whatever, we don't really care. We just want you to be generally physically active. And if there was one thing that you wanted to track around this, we're just simply looking to sprinkle in steps. Just be generally physically active, and you'll win most of the time when it comes to this. We're not worried about heart rate zones. We're not worried about the type of exercise. We're not worried about how much weight you're lifting. We're just like, be active, and you will get all of these benefits. But just like nutrition, where we've discovered that not only does it impact your body, it also impacts your brain, we've discovered that movement improves brain function. That's the electrical activity inside the brain of a zebrafish at rest. Now watch what happens when it starts to swim. The whole brain comes to life. Stop swimming, and the brain shuts off. You're seeing the mind-body connection in action. Like, how cool is that? We can spark our brain with movement. This research was highlighted in Dr. John Ratey's book, Spark. It was research done in an inner-city school in Chicago, and what they did was they took 3 groups of kids. They had one group of kids, and they did nothing different. The middle group did a little bit of walking up and down the hallway before math class, and the data on the right is from kids who did walking up and down the stairs before math class. And you can see that there's a direct relationship between the amount and intensity of physical activity and their results in mathematics. That research was replicated on 5,000 students in the UK, and what they found was that for every 15 minutes of physical activity that was added to the school day, GPAs went up a quarter grade point, up to a maximum of 1 hour, 1 grade point, beyond which there were no further benefits. So when it comes to mental performance, what we're looking for, is somewhere around an hour a day. And I know that's a lot, but again, it doesn't matter what you do. Walk, run, jog, swim, bike, paddle, gardening, housework, it all counts. And you can do it in a minute at a time, because research from McMaster University shows that as little as 1 minute of physical activity per day has a measurable positive impact upon your physiology. But it also impacts our psychology. This data was published a few years ago, and I love it because it explores the impact of exercise on our mental health. And what this group found, if you zoom into the big graph on the left, was that if we do 3, 4, or 5 exercise sessions per week, we have the lowest risk for depression and anxiety, the lowest mental health burden. If you don't do any exercise, mental health gets worse. Interestingly, also in this one, if you do too much exercise, your mental health will decrease, probably because you're exhausted and you're tired and maybe even stressed about figuring out how am I going to get this extra workout done. This research also discovered that around 45 minutes appears to be the optimal duration for improving mental health. And it doesn't all need to be done at once. You do 5 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes at noon, 20 minutes at night, 45 minutes a day, you win. The data also looked and broke it down for various different activities, and the exact same pattern was found. So over and over and over again, gardening, housework, walking, paddling, running, cycling, sports, it all works. All of it improves our mental health. So we're now saying that we move to think. We use exercise to spark the brain. And we've discovered, and are discovering more and more and more, that different types of exercise impact the brain in different ways. Exercise has now been demonstrated to improve concentration, alertness, learning, problem solving, creativity, and innovation. Those two at the top, concentration and alertness, seem to benefit from bursts of physical activity. So if you go for a walk and then sit down to get your work done, you'll be able to concentrate and to focus better. If you're at work and you notice that your mind is wandering or that you are having a hard time staying focused, quick walk around the block resets your brain. My son Adam struggles with focus, and so what we do a lot with him is we alternate bursts of physical activity, go outside, shoot hoops for 20 minutes, come back in and do homework. And when we alternate back and forth, he's able to learn no problem. Learning and strategic thinking is a little bit different. That requires stillness. So when we're trying to gather information, when we're trying to plan, when we're trying to reflect, when we're trying to deconstruct, it helps for us to be still and to find stillness, which is not easy in the world right now because it's so chaotic. So if you can find moments for stillness during the course of the day, that's when you can do your planning, that's when you can do your reflection, that's when you can do your thinking about what you need to think about. Interestingly, if you have problems to solve, you need creativity, you need innovation, you need problem solving. The way that we can access that through physical activity is rhythmic, repetitive movement. Walk, run, jog, swim, bike, paddle. It's far more likely that you will discover the solution to your problems when you're out for a long walk without your phone than trying to go through your email inbox. So Sunday morning long walks really, really helps me. I love going out for a long bike ride if there's something I've got to sort out. I've also noticed in my kids that when we go out and we go for a walk, we go for a bike ride, that my kids settle in too. They feel so much better. A lot of people are interested in what's the best time of day to exercise, like how do I incorporate this? And there's been a few discoveries around this as well. Morning seems to spark BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So if you want to improve your brain function during the course of the day, the morning workout is a great tool for you. And when I say workout, I mean walk, run, jog, swim, bike, paddle, any intensity, any duration, just be physically active. One idea that's gotten a lot of traction recently is the wake, water, walk protocol, the 3 W's, wake, water, walk. You wake up, drink some water to get hydrated, go for a walk. If you have a dog, take the dog for a walk, get your eyes out into the sunlight, and it just sets you up for a completely different day than waking up and immediately diving into your email and the stress zone that's associated with that. Noon is an interesting time to exercise because it increases your temperature just slightly, which prevents the release of melatonin, a little bit of melatonin, which sometimes happens in the afternoon. So if you experience the afternoon crash, like you want to take a nap in the afternoon, a way to get your afternoon back is what we call the second wind workout, which is some type of physical activity in and around noon to increase your body temperature, prevent the release of melatonin, get rid of that urge to sleep in the afternoon or that afternoon crash so you get your afternoons back. The evening is the best for dissipating stress hormones, because when we exercise, we actually break down cortisol and adrenaline, those molecules that are associated with the stress response. Your muscle contractions actually crush those molecules and break them down. So if you have had a stressful day, if you have been working really, really hard and you need to decompress and have a little bit of a transition, the evening workout is phenomenal for breaking down those stress molecules. I had a rough day at Sick Kids at one point in the cancer ward. You can figure out what that is. I was super upset going home, walked straight into my house, and I was transparently, I was not a good father. I was not a good husband. I was super activated. It was low parenting, bad dad. A few weeks later, a similar situation, driving home, upset, called Judith, my wife. I was like, I think I'm just going to go to the park and go for a walk. And she's like, yes, take your time, no rush, 3 hours, we've got you. Like, whenever you get here is cool. She gave me permission to go for that walk to decompress. We now call that the transition ritual. If you've got a stressful block during the day and you need to be settled and regulated before you walk into your house at night, it's a great idea. Take some time, go for a walk, hit the gym on the way home. You'll come in, you'll be a better parent, better partner, just better overall. So definitely something for you to think about there. I know a lot of people have fewer questions about exercise, but the answer really is just whatever time's for you. Like if it works for you to work out in the morning, that's great. If it works out for you at night, that's totally good as well. Like whatever works for you is totally fine. Another question we get a lot is, what about cardio or weights? Does it matter what type of exercise that we do? Similar to the time of day, of course, there's different effects, but ultimately whatever time of day works for you is great. And ultimately whatever type of exercise you enjoy is great too, but they are slightly different. If you do anything that is cardio-based, walk, run, jog, swim, bike, paddle, those types of activities, rhythmic, repetitive activities, what that does is it increases a molecule called AMP kinase, which elevates your fitness and also your lifespan. Cardio impacts longevity. It's super helpful. The other type of exercise is anything that's strength-based or resistance-based. So yoga, weights, housework, gardening. That increases a molecule. That lengthens health span, how long you live without a chronic disease. So the real answer is, when people ask, is it cardio or weights? The answer is probably a little bit of both, because cardio improves heart, lungs, blood, brain, and gives you extended lifespan, whereas the strength helps your muscles, your bones, also your brain, and gives you that health span, which is how long you live without a chronic disease. And ultimately what we want is like 85 great years, 1 bad week. So when we do both, we're more likely to achieve that. I've been just trying to hit a few cardio, a few weights, and stretching a little bit too, because I feel better when I stretch. So a little bit of yoga, a little bit of resistance, a few walks, and you win. Just mixing and matching it all together. People also ask about, how do you stay consistent with exercise? And I love showing this video. That's my daughter, Ingrid. She also had some pretty significant health challenges when she was younger. As I had viral myocarditis, a couple years later, she ended up with viral encephalitis, a brain infection, which was extremely problematic, super scary. She ended up losing some hearing, but at the end of the day, she's totally fine. And as part of that, we did a lot of activities to help to rebuild her brain function, one being rock climbing. So she's like, you have to announce me. And I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Ingrid Wells is about to climb Mount Everest. And she poses. So she has a confidence problem, but we're working on that as a family. So then she rockets to the top here. And I'm a big fan of activities that require a little bit of risk for my kids, because it teaches them to manage their concentration, their attention, their anxiety. So we do a lot of these types of activities. And she zips up to the top here. It's pretty cool to even just to see that all of these years later. But what I want to draw your attention to is when she gets to the bottom. So she comes down here. And I want you to look on her face right there. Happy, confident, proud, energized. Now contrast the look on her face right there with the typical look on someone's face at the gym on the elliptical. Pain, suffering, sacrifice, constipation, like bad, right? Bad. We have completely forgotten that exercise makes us feel great afterwards. And I realize that sometimes when you're sitting on the couch, the gravity is really strong in that one particular spot on the planet, and it's hard to get going. But once you do get going and you're done, you feel absolutely phenomenal. So please don't forget that. And the other thing is, you can always start and then go back. One of the little tiny rules that I've tried that has been super helpful is you've just got to start. If after 5 minutes you still don't want to do it, go home, no big deal. But in the last decade, I've probably gone home 3 times. Because as soon as you're going, you're like, no, actually this feels really, really good. So sprinkle in those steps, find a way to get through this, add a little bit of it to your life. Doesn't need to be that intense, doesn't need to be for a very long period of time. I love this quote. I love it because it's actually mine, but 60 minutes of exercise a day can lower your risk of cancer by 40%, reverse cardiovascular disease, reverse type 2 diabetes, decrease colds and flus by 75%, and make you happier. And the other thing about it, it's free. It costs you nothing except time. Maybe some new shoes, if you want. So what questions do you have for me about exercise? Anything at all physical activity related?
Hi, I was just wondering about your thoughts on creatine with exercise.
Interesting. So yeah, creatine's been very heavily researched. I think it's quite safe. I just published a podcast on that. So if you search Dr. Greg Wells Creatine podcast, I interviewed one of the top experts from Dr. Scott Farrow's lab. So we spoke about this extensively. We generally think it's a reasonably safe approach. There's good data that shows it improves strength training response, that it improves sprint training response. Not much of an effect on cardio training. Possibly good for us as we age. There might be some brain benefits as well. I used to recommend 4 to 6 grams, which is like a teaspoon, taken in water or green tea right before exercise. There might be some evidence that a little bit more could be helpful, like 10 to 15 grams, which would be like 2 teaspoons, but we're like 1-ish teaspoon. It also seems to really help people who are deficient and not as much for people who have more. If you don't want to do the supplement, you can have meat because it's in meat. So if you're eating a lot of meat generally as part of your diet, you've probably got enough. But it's safe. Research seems to suggest it's pretty good for strength, speed, not cardio, maybe some brain benefits, maybe some benefits for us as we age. So I am doing a little bit. My daughter's actually doing a little bit because she's heavily training right now. And if you want the full podcast, just search Dr. Greg Wells Creatine podcast and you'll find an hour-long interview where we dig deep into that. So yeah, yes.
Hi. Menopausal women exercise, strength training, and sleep. Can you give us your latest research?
Whew, okay, that's a lot. So, menopause, significant transition during life, some challenges around that. Hot flashes would be one of them. One of the lifestyle recommendations that we have around that is increasing hydration. So, and we increase hydration early in the day and less later in the day. So that would be the initial strategy that we're suggesting on that one. Second lifestyle intervention for women going through the season of menopause is exercise to the intensity of breaking a sweat increases general sleep duration and quality. But specifically for women going through menopause, resistance training increases slow wave deep sleep, the restorative sleep. So adding strength training is really, really important, and it helps your muscles, and it helps your bones, and it helps with mental health. But those are 2 strategies there. Also, potentially from a nutritional perspective, protein seems to be quite important as we age for both men and women. So we want to be thinking about that one as well. And for sure, have a conversation with your doctor about hormone replacement therapy, because the thinking around that is changed significantly for the better. So I'll definitely have that conversation. What we overall suggest, though, is let's work on our lifestyle and let's look at some medical support. And the combination of lifestyle plus individualized medical support can really make a huge difference there and help people tremendously. But that's what we're saying on that one.
What's your opinion on using pre-workout and the effects on the heart while you're doing like cardiovascular workouts and strength training? But is it better to take when you're strength training or versus when you're like trying to do more cardio?
Some sort of pre-workout drink. To some extent, it depends what's in the pre-workout drink. So it really depends. People have traditionally say, like, what do I eat on marathon day? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, you've ruined my entire... But so what we say around that is that sports nutrition, or like what you have on any given day, doesn't really make that much of a difference. What matters is, what are we doing consistently over a long period of time? So when people say, like, what do I eat right before workout? What do I eat right before a race? I'm like, I really don't care. And they're like, what? And like, what matters is your breakfast generally healthy? Is your lunch generally healthy? Is your dinner generally healthy? Are we having healthy snacks? Are we hydrated? Are we using caffeine strategically? Lots of fruits and vegetables. Eat the rainbow, so you have low oxidation, low inflammation. And then your nutrition supports your work, your exercise, your life. So I work on lifestyle as medicine, which then sets the stage for, if all of that is dialed, and then you can find some type of a drink that you have right before practice that you feel helps your workouts, then absolutely. That could include something like electrolytes. But electrolytes probably don't matter for any workout less than 60 minutes. After 60 minutes, maybe. Or if you're exercising in the heat, for sure. Or if you have a double workout in a day, great. We don't love sports drinks that have sugar in them for anything less than 90 minutes. We get more than enough energy from our nutrition, and so we generally recommend people drink water with a little bit of electrolytes or some citrus to make it taste better. And then of course there's all the sports nutrition around 2 hours before, 1 hour before, and recovery. And I have a pretty significant document on that we built for my company. If you want that, message me afterwards, say Greg, sports nutrition, and I'll send you the 30-page PDF that has like all of the details if you're super into it, which I think you might be. And then you can get into the details. But lifestyle first, hydration, and then maybe some specific sports nutrition afterwards. If you find a sport pre-drink that works for you, great, but really focus on the other stuff as a priority. Okay, all the way over here. You guys are awesome. Thank you for all these questions. You're absolutely incredible. You guys are doing really amazing. Yes?
Good, bad, and ugly of like the cold plunging / ice baths. Good, like I've done cold swims, that kind of thing in the St. Lawrence, but not the ice baths.
Got it. So heat or cold, both have been shown to be really great for us. Heat, saunas, hot baths, exercise to the point of sweating, even a hot shower. What that does is it increases temperature in your body. You have heat in your organs, your brain, your muscles. Your body then circulates blood throughout your body to get the heat from your organs, from your brain to your skin. And when you sweat, the water vapor, the evaporation, pulls that heat out of your body. When you're in a hot environment and there's no gradient between the environment and your skin, it makes the cardiovascular stress much higher because your blood has to pump that much more. So you can sit in a sauna and your heart rate will just climb. It's a cardiovascular stress. So much so that a minute of sauna is about the same as in its cardiovascular benefits for you is about a minute of running, up to about 20 minutes, after which it's much less so, might be even detrimental. So balance there. But a 20-minute sauna, 20-minute bath, 20-minute walk outdoors in the summer where you're sweating, all fantastic. And what that does is it creates something called a heat shock protein, which increases the health of your blood vessels amongst a bunch of other stuff. So it's great. Heat has been shown to be beneficial. Cold water immersion probably helps us to shift from sympathetic activation to parasympathetic nervous system activation. It calms us down. I've measured my heart rate in the sauna. It skyrockets. I've gone into, every day throughout the winter, I go into Lake Ontario. And when I'm in the lake, my heart rate goes way down. It actually goes in the opposite direction. And I feel layers of tension leave my body. Cold water immersion research seems to suggest that it has a positive impact on mental health, especially depression, especially in women. Super interesting. But women's physiology is different than men's physiology. So if you want to learn more about that, Dr. Rhonda Patrick, her website is Found My Fitness. And so if you search Rhonda Patrick cold, you'll find her significant article on that, and she's got the best research review on it. But I'm a big fan. But if you don't want to get into Lake Ontario in the middle of winter, a 30-second cold shower at the end of your shower in the morning, it doesn't even need to be cold, just put it down to cool, right on your forehead or right between your shoulder blades. People who do that consistently, that's another one of those studies that seems to suggest there's an improvement in immune system function with a lower risk of upper respiratory tract infections. So I'm a pretty big fan of both cold and heat. Last thought on that one is cold in the morning, heat at night, because heat also helps you potentially to sleep better. So great question on that one. Thank you.
Hi, you briefly mentioned the importance of protein for aging and menopause. Any thoughts about how much protein is good per day? There's a lot out there, so.
Yeah, there's a lot of debate about how much protein. The consensus seems to be settling on 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound body weight. So like 1 gram per body weight, but really it's this. Your palm, a few times a day. Like, that's it. Just like some eggs at lunch, a little bit of meat on your sandwich at dinner, a little bit of meat or fish or some veggies. Like, literally, it's the palm of your hand a few times a day. That's the easiest way to think about it.
Regards to muscle growth after a workout, what's the window for ingestion of protein?
So Dr. Dan Moore at the University of Toronto has looked into that quite a bit. And his latest thinking around that is if you generally have enough amino acids in your system from breakfast, lunch, dinner, on average over an extended period of time, that it really doesn't matter what the timing of your nutrition intake is for general health and wellness. If you are specifically interested in deliberately increasing your muscle mass, there's potentially a window of about 20 to 30 minutes after workout to get that food into your system and digested such that it is easily absorbed into your muscles. But back to the comment I made earlier about there's, the myth of sports nutrition. In general, if you're having breakfast, lunch, dinner with a little bit of protein consistently over time, most of those amino acids will be largely available. So if you do a workout, they'll be immediately absorbed and we don't need to worry about that too much. The exception is if you have an athlete who's doing 2 workouts a day, yes, afterwards probably makes a difference. If you have an athlete that's doing a competition that's 4 days in a row, probably something to work on having it immediately after each one of those sessions. But for general health and well-being as we age, a little bit of protein all the time, most of the amino acids will be there, such that when you do a workout, they'll be immediately absorbed into your muscles for muscle growth. And if you want to look that up, Dr. Dan Moore, University of Toronto, his publications are all over that stuff. Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, question about sleep. What does it mean when you twitch during sleep, and does it mean you've reached one of the levels of sleep, and is that normal?
Interesting. So when we twitch early on, like say as you're falling asleep, maybe there's a little bit of a twitch there. I actually don't know the mechanism of that, but what's curious is that when we sleep, we're actually paralyzed. You can breathe, your heart rate works, but the connection between your brain and your body is blocked to prevent you from acting out your dreams. So sometimes people wake up with sleep paralysis. You're conscious, but you're still paralyzed and you can't move, and it's really disconcerting. But it's an entirely normal protective mechanism to protect you from acting out your dreams. So as you fall asleep, some people twitch. Potentially it's related to the connection between your brain and your body, but I actually don't know the answer specifically to why that happens. And interesting, I'll look that up and see if I can find the answer to that one.
You mentioned creatine. Is that only for when you're exercising, or can it be taken like a supplement? And if so, how much?
Right. So what about creatine? Is it only for general health or for exercise supplementation? If you're exercising, for sure. General supplementation, possibly. There's some potential health benefits there for everyone, regardless, especially for the brain, probably right now, according to Dr. Scott Farrow from Regina. I think so. All right, let's get into the last section. I would like to talk about mindset. I'd like to talk a little bit about focus. And the reason why is because we're living through an era of constant, unrelenting distraction where there's a whole bunch of information coming at us through these devices that is not making us very, very happy. So thinking about our mental health, I would like to think overall about focus and concentration and attention. To get us started on this, I'll tell you a little bit of a story. That's my daughter Ingrid. She's a competitive swimmer. I'm also a competitive swimmer growing up. We love getting into the ocean. Recently, we had a chance to go out into the ocean in the Pacific, and we were visited by some baby sea lions, which was, so sweet, so wonderful. Until as a responsible parent, you ask yourself, where's the mother? And then as soon as you've answered that question, you're like, I wonder what eats the sea lions. And then this happens. So there's Ingrid, her guide / lifeguard, top right. She's ignoring him, which is a preview of my life now that she just turned 16. But anyway, she dives down through the school of fish here. How cool must that be, right? Like, just awesome for her to experience, like, this aquarium world that she just went through. Anyway, and she dives down one more time here. She survives, just to be clear. And I want you to look on the bottom of the ocean over her left shoulder, right there, as she disturbs a rather large white-tip reef shark, which then swims out over the bottom. Can you see it there? It's just entering the little white section. See if I've got a pointer. It's right there, for those of you that can't pick it out. It's right there. Anyway, so what I just did there was I showed you a video of my daughter swimming with sharks. I put my family in harm's way for all of you here today. But when I did that, what happened was, which was really interesting, is every single one of you, all of you, had your eyes glued to the screen because you knew what was coming. I set it up in such a way you knew that there was a shark coming, but you're so focused, you're so dialed in. Right now, in this era of constant distraction and immediate dopamine hits, it literally takes me showing people videos of my children swimming with sharks to get everybody's attention. That's how messed up it is right now. Now, when I did that though, when you were dialed in, when your eyes were on the screen, when you were looking for the shark, you were not thinking about anything else. You're not thinking about your email inbox. You're not thinking about how am I going to get home tonight. I'm not thinking about the to-do list. You are dialed in on the screen. When you are in that state, you are in something known as a beta brainwave state. If we were to put electrodes all over your head and measure the brainwave activity in your brain, it would be 16 to 30 hertz. When you're dialed in, you're focused, you're executing, you're getting stuff done. This is world-class, high-performance, focused execution mode. When you're focused, when you're concentrating, when your attention is directed towards one thing, blood flow goes to the region of your brain you are using to supply it with oxygen and glucose, the energy that it needs in order to get the job done. World-class performers in all disciplines, music, science, sports, drama, medicine, all of it, dial in their focus and learn to protect their focus and prevent distractions. Check out Coco Gauff at the tennis last summer. Totally focused, dialed in on the only thing that matters, the ball, which has a horrible future. But what happened if even for a tenth of a second, she gets distracted by a fan, the media, televisions, her coach? She misses. You know this. Yeah, we do dinner with their families, with their phones out on the table. We do meetings with our teams with the audio notifications on. We are living in an era of constant distraction, but inherently we know that staying focused is essential for us in order to be world class. I would encourage you to think about defending your attention. I want you to live a lot less like this. That was an interesting grumble that just went through the crowd. And I want you to live a lot more like that. How about this? Think about turning off the audio notifications on all of your devices at all times. Because when your phone goes off, even if it's just a little ding, not only does it get your attention and distract you, it distracts everyone else within earshot. And research shows that adults now touch their phones around 250 times a day. Imagine if you touched your partner or spouse 400 times a day. Like that's either going to go very, very well or very, 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 very badly. So we need to be a little bit more intentional about this. I would love for you to use your technology. I love my technology. I have it all. But I try to use it intentionally now, not compulsively. If I catch myself doom scrolling through social at 11 o'clock at night, that's not going to help me sleep better. If I'm feeling a little bit unregulated or a little bit down or a little bit frustrated, looking at social media is not going to make me feel better. Checking the news will definitely make me feel worse. We need to protect our attention in an era of constant, unrelenting distraction. To get you started, I'd like for you to consider the 30-31 protocol. 30 minutes a day for 30 days in a row on your number one most important priority. Whatever that is for you. It could be a relationship, it could be taking a course, it could be your fitness, it could be cooking, it could be training your team, it could be learning a new skill. Don't care what it is, but we're learning something, we're focusing on something in a tight bubble of no distraction every single day, 30 minutes a day, 30 days in a row. I have a little reminder that goes off in my calendar, first of every month. Hey, Greg, reset 30-31. I'm like, okay, yeah, what am I doing this month? What's important for me? Find a time in the calendar, block it off so that I can protect my attention in an era of constant, unrelenting distraction. Another way that really helps people to do this, and I noticed this in the doctor's office down in the beaches where I go, the dentist's office in the beaches where I go recently, is they leverage the power of music. And I love studying high performers to learn what they do. And if you look at world-class performers, what are they often doing before a performance moment? They're listening to music, right? Over and over and over again, you will see this happen. They're protecting their attention. They're elevating their mood. This MRI study that I'm highlighting here shows that when we listen to music that we like, it increases the activity level in 7 regions of your brain that are associated with mood. It literally elevates your mood when you listen to music, if you enjoy it. There have been a few Taylor Swift breakup songs in my house lately. Maybe not that, but all of the other stuff, probably pretty good. Research has expanded on this quite a bit lately, showing that there are 7 C's of music. Improves contact, cognition, copathy, which is empathy in 2 directions, communication, coordination, cooperation, and cohesion. Think about the music that's on at your office. Think about the music that's on in your home. Think about the music that you play for dinner. Think about the music that you play on your walks, your workout, because music can elevate our life. I'd love for you to create a playlist for your life. Have a playlist for your workout, a playlist for your meals. Like we play Motown music during dinner. It's awesome. I have 3 workout playlists, and I live in Toronto, so I'm constantly stuck in traffic. So we actually do what we think about as traffic university, audiobooks, podcasts, things that elevate us, that make us happy, that we learn from, that improve our mood. Build a playlist for your life such that you can focus on what matters to you, you can learn, you can enjoy life, you can feel a little bit better. I've zipped through social media, focus, mood, all those sorts of things, but I am a 55-year-old guy with a very big ego. I can't look at social media, it makes me upset. I uninstalled all the apps from my phone. Judith, my wife, is a chiropractor, acupuncture, massage therapist. She hates technology. She doesn't need to worry about it. She's so analog, it's unbelievable. She's the only one that could function if there was a full tech breakdown. She'd be like, I didn't notice anything. But we are working on this a lot as a family. This is one of the areas that I'm working on a lot with the clients that I work with. And it's one of the areas that I would encourage you to think about. One simple takeaway is consider a media audit. Everyone that has access to your brain is having an influence on your brain, whether that's the people that you follow on social media, the audiobooks that you're listening to, the podcasts that you consume. Defend your attention. Make sure the people that have access to your brain are elevating you, making you happy, helping you to learn something. There's so much negativity in the world right now, so much fear, so much anger, so much polarization, that we need to defend ourselves from that so that we can spend our time, effort, energy, and attention on the people that we love, serving the people that are in our communities and that we support through our businesses and our work and our profession to make the world a better place. We talked about a lot today. Let me give you a quick run through. We talked about sleep. Core takeaway, please defend your last hour. Second element that we talked about a great deal was nutrition. Number one thought there, just simply eat to heal. We worked through a little bit around exercise. Keep it super simple, everyone. Sprinkle in your steps. Doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter how long it goes for, doesn't matter the intensity, we're just generally habitually physically active. And when it comes to thinking clearly, the core message here, please defend your attention in an era of constant, unrelenting distraction. If you have any questions that I didn't get to today, or you would like PDF download, audio books, all the stuff, every resource I have, they're all here. My books are for sale there as well. That's the only thing I sell. Everything else is totally for free. You don't need to put in your email or anything like that. I actually have a bunch of books with me. If anyone would like the book Rest, Refocus, Recharge, on which this talk is based, they're there. They're $20. If you want to pick one up, I would be super grateful, infinitely grateful for that. I'll hang it over there. I will also stay here all through lunch. If anyone has any individual questions, you want to come chat with me, I will be here as well. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for taking care of the health of so many people. I hope that was helpful for all of you.
Okay, everyone, I hope that you enjoyed that. That's a lot. If you're still here, wow, I'm impressed. If you are still here, please share this episode with anyone that you think might benefit from it. Of course, it is a masterclass. It is a deep dive. It is a serious commitment of 2 hours of your time to dig into your own health and well-being. And I celebrate you for doing that. Like, way to go. That's incredible. You just took a huge amount of time to think about yourself and to elevate your own health and well-being. Of course, we want to make sure that you action this. So if you want to dig deeper, get the book. You can order it on Amazon, and it's called The Ripple Effect. That is the book upon which that session was just based. Of course, in the show notes today, there are there's a download, there's a PDF workbook that has a whole bunch of exercises, all related to what I just spoke about in that podcast, in that masterclass. So download that, go through those exercises, work on it, journal on it. This is not something that is an easy, quick fix. This is going to require a pretty significant commitment over an extended period of time, but ultimately that is how we change ourselves. That's how we elevate ourselves, and that's how we improve our health and well-being. So I hope that this was helpful for you. I'm just so honored and grateful that you are still here. Of course, if you are here, you're probably subscribed, but if you're not, please do so. And of course, as I mentioned before, share this with someone that you care about. Share this with someone who needs this information, someone who could benefit and is ready to elevate their health and well-being, so we can help them out as well. All right, that's it for this week. I've got another masterclass coming up for you in the next one. So if this one worked for you, get ready for the next one. It is even more in depth. All right, everyone, have a great week. We'll talk again soon.